My son installed a smart home security system in my house on Father's Day. He said it was for my safety. 3 weeks later, my son-in-law found something buried in the software that made his hands start to shake. He looked at me across my living room and said, "Dad, somebody has been watching you, listening to you, recording everything." At first, I thought he was overreacting. I thought there had to be a reasonable explanation. But when I discovered what my own son had been putting in motion for months, I realized that Father's Day gift had never been about keeping me safe. It was about making sure I had nowhere to hide when they came to take everything. I turned 69 on a Friday in mid-June, and by then summer had finally settled over Kingston after one of those long Ontario springs that drags its feet and leaves cold in the corners of the house. I woke in the home my wife Elaine and I had bought 41 years earlier. The same house where we raised our children, hosted Christmas dinners, argued about paint colors, and outlasted more hard seasons than I care to count. Elaine died 4 years ago. Breast cancer. 16 months from diagnosis to the end. Some mornings I still reach toward her side of the bed before memory catches up. The coffee maker clicked on at 6:15. I'd programmed it that way because Elaine always had coffee ready before I came downstairs, and I could not stand the silence of a kitchen without that familiar sound. I poured myself a mug and stood at the back window watching sunlight lift over the neighboring roofs. At my age, mornings begin to feel like a form of mercy. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from my son, Simon. "Happy birthday, Dad. Coming by Sunday with a surprise for Father's Day. Hope you're around." Around. As if a widower of 69 living alone in the same house he had lived in for 4 decades might have been out dancing until midnight. Simon arrived that Sunday just after 1 o'clock with his wife, Julia. They came through the front door carrying glossy boxes and smiling too brightly. Even then, before I had a reason to distrust them, there was something practiced in those smiles. "Dad," Simon said, setting a large box on the kitchen table, "we've been worried about you. You're here alone now. We wanted to do something that would help you feel safer." I looked at the boxes. Smart doorbell, indoor cameras, motion sensors, a voice assistant, smart locks, a central hub. The packaging promised peace of mind, live monitoring, full home visibility, instant response. It looked expensive. Too expensive. "This is too much," I said. "I don't need all this." Julia stepped closer and rested a hand on my forearm. She had a way of touching people that never quite felt warm. It felt efficient, like she was establishing contact for a purpose. "Martin," she said, "we'd sleep so much better knowing you were protected. You can see who's at the door without getting up. If anything ever happens, you just speak and the system responds." "We'll install everything for you," Simon said. "You won't have to do a thing." They spent most of the afternoon setting it up, mounting cameras high in the corners of the living room and kitchen, replacing my old doorbell, pairing devices to my phone, running through menus and settings faster than I could follow. I made sandwiches. I handed them cold drinks. I watched my own home fill with discreet little lenses and glowing indicators and told myself I should be grateful. I was grateful. That was the worst part. By 4:30, Simon stood back and wiped his hands on his jeans. "There," he said. "All done." He showed me the app on my phone, the front walk in sharp detail, the living room from 2 angles, the side entrance, the backyard where Elaine's peonies still came up every spring whether anyone deserved beauty or not. "You can check everything from here," he said. "Doorbell, locks, cameras, all of it." "Thank you," I told him, and I meant it. "This is thoughtful." He hugged me. "You're our dad," he said. "We're supposed to take care of you." After they left, I walked through the house slowly. The cameras were small and black and almost elegant in a cold way. The speaker sat on the kitchen counter like something that belonged to a younger man's life. The new lock on the front door clicked with a sound that struck me as oddly final. The house felt different. Safer, I told myself. protected. I had no idea I had just helped install a surveillance network designed and operated by the people who meant to strip me bare. The next few weeks passed quietly. I got used to the technology more quickly than I expected. I checked the front porch before opening the door, asked the speaker for the weather, looked up live feeds when parcels were delivered. I even called Simon twice to thank him again. In July, my daughter Claire flew in from Edmonton for a visit. She had moved west 19 years earlier and built a life there with her husband, Owen Mercer, who worked in cybersecurity for an energy company. They had done well for themselves, good careers, a sensible townhouse, the kind of life you are grateful your child has built, even while you hate the distance it requires. Owen came with her that time. He was 46, tall, quiet, and methodical, the kind of man who listened completely before he answered. I had always liked him. He reminded me of myself at that age. Careful, slow to assume, hard to impress, harder to fool. He noticed the new system within 10 minutes. "Nice setup," he said, glancing at the camera above the bookshelf. "When did you get all this?" "Father's Day," I said. "Simon and Julia brought it over." His expression changed so slightly, another man might have missed it. "Did they?" "It was a gift." He nodded. "Do you mind if I take a look at the configuration?" he asked. "Professional habit." "Go ahead." I started dinner while he sat at my computer in the study. Claire worked beside me at the counter, chopping vegetables, asking about the neighborhood, the garden, whether I was sleeping all right. All the ordinary questions that children begin asking their parents once age starts to collect around the body. About 40 minutes later, Owen called from the other room. "Martin." His voice was careful, different. I set down the knife and went to him. Claire followed. He turned the screen toward us. The display meant nothing to me, menus, logs, lines of data. But Owen's face told me enough. "What is it?" I asked. He sat back slowly. "This system has a hidden access route," he said. "Someone besides you can see the camera feeds, access the microphones, and monitor activity on the network." "That's the security company," I said. "It has remote monitoring." Owen shook his head. "No, this isn't standard monitoring. This was custom configured before the devices were installed. Somebody built a private backdoor into the system." I stared at him. "What are you telling me?" "I'm telling you someone has been inside your house without being inside your house," he said. "They've been able to watch, listen, and record almost everything." The room seemed to shrink around me. "Who would do that?" Owen looked at me for a long second. Then he asked the question I already knew the answer to. "Who installed it?" I could not make myself say Simon's name. Claire did it for me. "Simon and Julia," she said softly. Owen's jaw tightened. He turned back to the screen and pulled up more logs, more records, more proof. "There's more," he said. "Whoever built this knew what they were doing. This wasn't curiosity. It was preparation." Claire took my hand. I remember that more than anything. Her hand finding mine in that room where my son had made me into an object. "I think we need the police," Owen said. I did not answer right away. I was somewhere else. I was in the backyard 27 years earlier, standing with Simon on a ladder while we repaired the shed roof after a storm. He was 17, strong, sunburned, full of impatience and loyalty and the easy certainty boys mistake for permanence. At one point, he drove in a nail, looked over at me, and said, "One day I'll take care of you when you're old. You and Mom both." Elaine was in the garden below us, pretending not to listen. I remember smiling. I remember believing him. The memory vanished. I was back in the study, older than I had expected to feel, staring at evidence that my son had turned my own home into an instrument against me. "Call them," I said. Detective Paul Rennie met us 2 days later at the Kingston Police Financial Crimes Office. He was in his mid-50s, broad-shouldered, steady-eyed, with the face of a man who had spent too many years watching greed dress itself up as family concern. Owen had prepared everything in a format the police could actually use. He had screenshots, access logs, timeline notes, network records, device pairings. Rennie read it all carefully, asked a few technical questions, wrote notes in a black notebook worn soft at the edges. When he finished, he looked at me. "Mr. Keene," he said, "your son-in-law is right. This was configured as a covert surveillance system. Whoever set it up had full remote visibility into your home and communications." I sat very still. "What does that mean?" "It means someone wanted information," he said. "Your routines, your health, your conversations, your finances. Enough to build a case around you." "A case for what?" He folded his hands. "Tell me about your assets." It felt obscene, sitting in a police office discussing the price of my life. But I answered. The house was worth about $1.6 million in the current market. Elaine and I had investments, retirement accounts, a pension from my years as a senior auditor, and a life insurance policy worth $600,000, split equally between my two children. Rennie nodded slowly. "In my experience," he said, "when family members put surveillance on an older relative, it usually supports something bigger. Power of attorney abuse, guardianship fraud, financial control, sometimes worse." "Worse? Sometimes they're not just trying to manage the person," he said. "They're trying to replace him." I looked at Owen, then at Claire, then back at the detective. "What do you need me to do?" He did not hesitate. "Act as though you know nothing," he said. "Use the system. Let them think it's still working. Let them believe they're ahead of you. You want me to pretend I don't know my own son has been spying on me. I want you alive and still in control when this is over. There are moments when a man understands that dignity is going to cost him something. That was one of them." I said yes. That first night back at the house, I sat in the living room with the television low and talked to the empty room. Not loudly, not theatrically, just enough. "I've been thinking," I said, knowing someone was listening through the walls I had painted with my wife. "House is getting to be a lot. Harder to keep track of things now." The words tasted sour. I went into the kitchen the next morning and muttered to myself about my medications. Mentioned forgetting an appointment that didn't exist. Stood by the counter and said, "Need to get my affairs in order," into the air like a man losing his grip. I was building them the version of me they wanted, the confused widower. The old man getting soft around the edges, the father who would soon need permission to remain himself. Simon called that afternoon. "How are you feeling, Dad?" "All right," I said. "Tired some days." "I've been worried about you," he said. "Julia, too." "I appreciate that." There was a pause, brief but deliberate. "We've been thinking maybe it's time to talk about some options," he said. "Options?" "Just planning, making sure things are taken care of. We could come by Saturday and help organize some things." I let my voice falter just enough. "That might be good." When I hung up, I called Rennie and repeated every word. Simon and Julia came on Saturday carrying folders and brochures. They spread everything out on my kitchen table while I made coffee. Retirement communities, assisted living, memory support residences with smiling stock photographs of silver-haired people in spotless cardigans. Julia took the lead, as she always did. "There are some very nice places nearby," she said. "Places where everything is looked after. Meals, medication, appointments, all of it." I turned pages slowly. Places where old people are arranged, not loved. Simon cleared his throat. "I also spoke with a lawyer," he said. "Just about setting up a power of attorney, basic planning, in case you ever need help handling things." "In case," I repeated. "It's standard," Julia said quickly. "Everyone does it eventually." She slid a packet toward me. Dense legal language. Signature lines waiting at the bottom like open mouths. I pretended to read. "This is a lot," I said. "Can I think about it?" "Of course," Simon said, and his relief was so obvious it hurt me to see it. "No pressure." After they left, I photographed every page and sent them to Rennie. Then I went to the basement. Elaine had been the organized one in our marriage. Every tax slip, every insurance document, every warranty, every account statement, labeled, filed, dated. After she died, I could not bring myself to disturb the order she had made. It felt like tearing at the last fabric she had left behind. But that afternoon, I pulled down box after box, bank records, insurance papers, property files, tax returns, medical forms, a lifetime reduced to folders and dates. I found the file in a plain manila folder shoved between old home repair receipts and an envelope of expired appliance warranties. It didn't belong with Elaine's system. It had no label. Inside were papers that made my hands go numb. Capacity assessment forms with my name already filled in. Checklists for confusion, memory impairment, inability to manage daily tasks. Boxes marked in pencil beside symptoms I did not have. Guardianship petition templates, Ontario forms for declaring an adult incapable, printouts of my bank balances, investment summaries, a copy of the deed to the house, details only my financial advisor and immediate family knew, and beneath those, a handwritten timeline. Simon's handwriting. I had seen it on Mother's Day cards, school permission slips, birthday envelopes, scribbled grocery notes on my fridge. Phase 1. Install monitoring system. Establish routines. June. Phase 2. Document signs of decline. Support incapacity narrative. July through September. Phase 3. Obtain POA under routine estate planning. October. Phase 4. File guardianship materials. Arrange medical capacity confirmation. November. Phase 5. Assume control. Prepare liquidation. December to January. At the bottom, written in a different hand, Victor says we need to accelerate. He is still too sharp. Look into medication interference or sleep disruption. Need stronger evidence. Julia's handwriting. I stood in that basement holding proof that my own child intended to erase me. Not rob me, not pressure me, erase me. I called Rennie from down there. "I found the plan," I said. "All of it." He was at my house within the hour. Once he read the documents, things moved quickly. Within a week, his team had identified Victor Sayer. He was a financial consultant on paper. In reality, he was something else. 5 years earlier, he had been convicted in Alberta for defrauding an elderly widow in Red Deer. He had gained access through her daughter, manipulated the family dynamics, moved money through shell accounts, and nearly stripped the woman of everything before police intervened. A specialist, Rennie called him. That was the word. A specialist in turning children against their parents when debt and fear had softened them enough. Simon and Julia, it turned out, were in serious trouble. They had opened a bistro in Oakville 3 years earlier. Expensive lease, fancy build-out, ambitious menu. It failed in less than 2 years. By the time the doors closed, they were carrying nearly $380,000 in debt. Credit cards, vendor balances, personal loans, a second mortgage. I sat in Rennie's office listening to this and thinking one stupid, useless thing. Why didn't he ask me? If Simon had come to me and said, "Dad, I'm drowning," I would have sold stock. I would have taken a line against the house. I would have done what fathers do. I would have helped. Rennie must have seen something on my face. "That's what makes men like Sayer dangerous," he said. "They convince desperate people that taking is cleaner than asking, that the parent will never notice, that the money is already practically theirs." "What now?" I asked. "Now," he said, "we let them keep going." So I kept performing. I left dishes in the sink, forgot to water the front planters, repeated myself on phone calls, asked Simon the same question twice in one conversation. I hated every minute of it. A man spends his life building competence, and then one day he is forced to wear helplessness like a costume so the people he raised will reveal themselves. Simon began calling more often. Dad, did you eat? Dad, you sound tired. Dad, are you still taking the blood pressure pills in the morning? Each call was recorded, each conversation logged. Then Rennie called me with something that changed the shape of it. We intercepted a conversation between Julia and Victor Sayer, he said. You need to hear it. He played the recording through the phone. Julia's voice came first. He'll sign next week. Simon's bringing him to the lawyer Thursday. Then Victor, smooth, calm, professional in the worst way. Good. Once you have power of attorney, move immediately. Guardianship materials should be ready to file within days. Julia asked, What about the medical piece? I have someone who can move that faster than usual, Victor said. Don't worry about it. Then she asked, And Claire? She's in Edmonton, he said. By the time she knows anything, it'll already be done. There was a pause. Then Julia again, lower this time. What about the insurance? Victor gave a small laugh. One thing at a time. Get the assets first. What does that mean? It means older people in managed care have accidents, he said. Falls, medication errors. It happens. The recording ended. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the wall where Elaine used to pin Christmas cards and school photos. They're talking about killing me, I said. Rennie did not soften it. Yes, he said, and now we have enough to move. He wanted the arrests at the signing. He wanted them on record, in process, with the papers in front of me and intent hanging in the room like a smell. Can you still go through with it? He asked. I thought about Simon as a boy, about hockey skates on the mudroom floor, about report cards and long drives and the night he cried after his first real heartbreak, about him standing at his mother's funeral in a black suit, gripping my shoulder and saying, We'll get through this, Dad. I said yes. The lawyer's office was on the third floor of a professional building near the waterfront. Simon drove. Julia sat in the back seat answering messages and pretending it was any other Thursday. You're doing the right thing, Simon told me on the way up in the elevator. This will make things easier. For whom? I thought. The reception area was quiet. Soft carpet, frosted glass, expensive silence. A woman led us into a conference room where a man in a navy suit was waiting with documents spread neatly in front of him. He introduced himself as Leonard Price, attorney at law. I remember thinking, with a strange, detached clarity, that he looked like a man who had never once in his life wondered whether he was on the wrong side of something. We sat. Price pushed the papers toward me. Power of attorney, health directives, banking authority, transfer consents, enough paper to remove a man from his own life while still calling it care. If you'll just sign here, he said pleasantly, tapping the first page, and initial at the bottom of the others, we can have everything in place today. I picked up the pen, looked at the lines, looked at my son's face. Then I set the pen down. Before I sign, I said, I'd like someone to explain why these documents make Simon the controlling authority over my accounts, support a guardianship petition already drafted in my name, and create room for Julia's associate Victor Sayer to plan the rest of my life, including the part where I die. The room went still. Not quiet. Still. Simon's face emptied first, then Julia's. Leonard Price stopped breathing for a moment. Dad, Simon said, I don't know what you think. The conference room door opened. Detective Rennie stepped in with 4 officers behind him. Simon Keene, Julia Keene, Leonard Price, he said. You are under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and participating in the financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Simon stood up so quickly his chair tipped backward. This is insane, he said. Dad, tell them. I looked at him. Really looked. At the panic. At the tears already building. At the man he had let himself become. It isn't a mistake, I said. I know about the surveillance system. I know about the timeline. I know about Victor. I know about the conversations. I know about the house, the accounts, the insurance. I know what you were preparing to do." Julia said nothing, not a word. Even then, her face was working, calculating, shifting through options that had already closed. Simon looked as if something inside him had finally broken loose. "Dad, we were desperate," he said. "The debt was crushing us. Victor said this was the only way." "The only way," I said, and my own voice cracked then, "was to ask me." He started crying in earnest. "I couldn't," he said. "I couldn't let you see me like that. You preferred this? He said you'd never know. He said you wouldn't suffer. He said by the time anything changed, it would already be handled." "Handled," I repeated. The officers took hold of his arms. "Dad," he said, "please." I thought of the recording. Managed care accidents, falls, medication errors. I thought of Elaine's side of the bed, of the coffee maker at 6:15, of roses by the front walk, of the life I had spent decades building with 2 hands and an honest name. I said nothing. They let him out. Victor Sayer was arrested that evening at a condo in Mississauga. He claimed at first that he was nothing more than a consultant, a planner, a neutral advisor. But the messages, recordings, draft strategies, and financial links told another story. The investigation widened quickly after that. Forensic accountants traced communications and money across several files. Digital specialists pulled deleted records from phones and laptops. Other families surfaced. Other older people. Other suspicious transfers. Other sudden moves into care. Other wills rewritten in haste. Other deaths that had once looked ordinary and now looked less so. By winter, the case had become far larger than mine. The trial began the following April. I attended every day, not because I enjoyed it, because I needed to see the truth of it in daylight. Victor Sayer received 16 years. Fraud, conspiracy, criminal negligence connected to multiple deaths. The Crown reopened during the investigation. The judge called him a predator who weaponized family dependence and financial distress for profit. Julia received 5 years. The court found she had not merely followed Simon, but actively coordinated the surveillance, gathered information, and helped build the case for my incapacity. Simon received a suspended sentence with strict probation, full restitution conditions, and mandatory cooperation. His lack of prior record mattered. So did the fact that he eventually testified against Sayer. The judge said he had been manipulated, but she said something else too, and that part stayed with me. "Manipulation explains conduct," she said. "It does not absolve betrayal." Afterward, I filed a no-contact order. No calls, no visits, no letters directly to me. I changed my will, changed the insurance beneficiaries, changed powers of attorney. Claire took over my affairs. Owen replaced every device in the house and built a proper security system, one I control and understand. The cameras Simon installed are gone. The house is quieter now, cleaner in ways that have nothing to do with dust. Elaine's roses still bloom by the front walk each spring. Her memory still sits in certain rooms at certain hours, especially in the morning when the house is deciding whether to be bearable. Simon writes sometimes. The letters go to Claire first. She asks whether I want to read them. So far, I have said no. Maybe that will change one day. Maybe it won't. Not every wound closes because time has passed. Some remain exactly where they were made, only deeper and more familiar. I turned 70 the next June. Claire called from Edmonton. Owen sent a cedar planter for the back deck. I spent the afternoon pulling weeds in Elaine's garden and talking to her the way I sometimes still do when the quiet gets heavy enough. "Our boy tried to take my life," I told the roses. "Not in one blow, in paperwork, in signatures, in careful stages. Our boy wanted me erased." The roses did what roses always do. Bloomed. Said nothing. offered no judgment and no comfort, only beauty. There are things I wish I had understood sooner. I wish I had understood that expensive gifts are not always gifts, especially when they come with access. A phone, a tablet, a smart speaker, a security system. Anything connected can become a window, and a window can become a weapon in the wrong hands. I wish I had paid closer attention when interest in my finances became more frequent, more specific, more practical. Questions about bank accounts, insurance, property value, monthly income. Those questions can come from love. They can also come from reconnaissance. I wish I had understood how dangerous it is when someone begins building a story about your confusion before you have even realized one is being told. A misplaced word, a repeated question, a tired afternoon. In the right mouth, these become evidence. I wish I had remembered that power of attorney is not a favor. It is power. In decent hands, it protects you. In dishonest hands, it can hollow you out while smiling at you across a kitchen table. I wish I had recognized isolation for what it was. Not every attempt to simplify your life is meant kindly. Predators prefer you managed, dependent, and unheard. Most of all, I wish I had trusted the discomfort I felt that first afternoon when the cameras went up in my house. The body often notices danger before pride allows the mind to name it. I tell myself there is no use in living backward. Still, a man thinks these things. Financial desperation can make people unrecognizable. That is not forgiveness. It is only fact. Simon and Julia were drowning. Victor Sayer offered them a version of survival that required my destruction. They took it. And I am left with the knowledge that my son did not begin as a monster. He began as a frightened man who made one cowardly choice, and then another, until the person he had once been could no longer speak loud enough to stop him. That is the part that haunts me. Not just that he betrayed me, that he had to betray himself first. I still live in the same house, still wake before dawn most mornings, still let the coffee maker click on at 6:15 because some habits deserve to outlive grief. I still miss my wife. I still think of Simon at 17 with a hammer in his hand, promising he would take care of me when I got old. Sometimes I wake from dreams like that with my hand half raised toward a life that no longer exists. But I am still here, still in my own home, still able to open my own front door, still myself. At my age, that counts for more than people think. And if there is anything worth saying at the end of all this, it is only this. Protect yourself. Protect your name. Protect your right to remain the author of your own life. Sometimes the greatest threat does not arrive masked. Sometimes it comes boxed like a gift on Father's Day, carried through your front door by someone who still calls you Dad.